paying into the system can actually invest separately, and they don't have to depend on some handout from the federal government that doesn't not know how to manage their own money. Now, Obama also, the other lie, who's paying? Well, if you really look at my kid, when he worked between his junior and senior year, he only made about $4,000. He had to pay a self-employment tax, no federal tax, no state tax, but total came to $565 or 14% of his income. You say, well, Dr. Baker, that's not a federal income tax. Yeah, but Social Security tax, self-employment tax was merged with the general tax fund over 30 years ago. They spent it. That's why they don't have it. It's gone. All of it's gone. Okay? So that's why when you do your tax calculations, you have to do them all. Okay? In my category, I work and my wife works. We literally make $100,000 a year. We paid $14,000 in self-employment tax. We paid $18,000 in federal tax. We paid $4,000 to the state of Colorado for a total of $36,652 last year after business expenses. I paid 37%, and I can guarantee I don't get to drive in the lane without potholes. I drive in the same lane that this guy paying 14% pays. But the reality is, Obama says, number one, I'm not paying enough. And he says, number two, I'm going to make your paychecks a little bit fatter. And truthfully, he did that through some tax exemption because I used the exact same criteria from the preceding year. And basically, my taxes that I paid went down $340 total, $340. Okay? Did I get a tax break from Mr. Obama? The answer is no. Because we have to change the lexicon. We have to stop using the approved terminology of the Politburo of Washington, D.C. Their approved terminology is stimulus spending. Their approved terminology is deficit spending. The true words should be deferred taxes. Everybody understand that? So I got a current cut of $340, but I got a tax increase of $13,333 based on deferred taxation. Again, it goes back to intergenerational theft. So with one hand, they're saying, ooh, look, John, you're going to get $39 back. And on the other hand, that same person is $13,333 deeper in debt. It's got to be paid someday.
You're in the military, so you took in the same as a whole bunch of us here this year. Noticed that your federal tax, if any was being taken out, increased. Where last couple of years, because of his little trickery to the citizenry, where he says, well, I'm going to increase your money you're getting, he lowered it and everything else. And we got nailed this year.
Yeah, everybody's going to get nailed.
And finance couldn't explain it to anybody until about 6 months ago when it finally came out.
Well, the truth of the matter, I mean, for you to cover Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, plus all the Obamacare stuff, there's really about three things you can do. Okay? Actually, probably four. One, increase tax. All right? Two, decrease spending, which means rationing of everything. Ration Social Security, ration Medicare, ration Medicaid, ration Obama health care. Third thing would be a little bit of both. You know, for instance, 50% increase in taxes and a 50% decrease in services. Okay? The fourth thing, the actual true third thing, besides a merger of both of those, is inflating your way out. Now, our dollar compared to the Canadian dollar and compared to the international market has already dropped by a third. Our spending power is 1/3 less than it was 8 years ago.
Outside of the United States.
Outside the United States. And you think about how many foreign goods we have in the United States, okay? If you take a look even in the United States, 2 years ago, you're paying a little over $2 for gas. Now you're paying, well over $3 for gas. So even in gasoline, you've already experienced at least a 50% increase just compared to 2 years ago. When you look at cotton, wheat, rice, all those things have increased by about 30% over the last 15 to 18 months. So inflating your way out of this kind of stuff is sort of an invisible way of screwing the American population, because the American population just don't quite get it. It's sort of like Social Security, or the income tax, rather. 1913, average citizen paid 0. For those in higher tax brackets, they paid 1%. Now we're paying 37%. In the book, I call it boiled frogs, because they say you throw a frog in boiling water, it's going to try to jump out. But you stick it in tepid water and slowly turn up the heat. That's like Social Security, 1% this year, 2% the next year, 3% the next year. Eventually, you're paying this massive, massive amount, okay? The question is, can we save the nation? I'm telling you that we are actually standing on the edge of the Grand Canyon and the breeze is blowing in the wrong direction. So can we save our country? The answer is yes. The fact that you're sitting here tonight gives me encouragement. The fact that you're sitting here tonight tells me that we can pull the country back from the precipice if all of us commit to educating our neighbors, our children, our relatives, and we insist that our elected officials comply with the damn Constitution. This war in Libya is a prime example. The president's saying, oh, it's constitutional, I'll do what I want. And he's being sued. I say don't sue him, impeach him. He's violating the Constitution. And every time they pass a law that is not in compliance with the Constitution, we need to raise the heck about it. Protect the Constitution, shrink the size of the government. You will automatically shrink the size of the government if you comply with the Constitution. I showed you the fiscal slides. There's $14.7 trillion in debt in the general fund. $17 trillion has been spent on those unconstitutional departments. We need a balanced budget. I am so sick and tired of hearing politicians talking about reducing the deficit. It's got to be zero. Zero. None. Zero. None. Nada. Because as long as we continue deficit spending, again, read that as deferred taxation, our country gets closer and closer and closer to a whisper of a breeze dropping us to the bottom of the Grand Canyon. Runaway government spending, restoring fiscal responsibility should be our first two criteria. Now, Agenda 21 goes hand in hand with this, because what are some of the things from Agenda 21? One, cause fiscal collapse. Two, cause land grab. What do you call the housing bubble? That was the biggest land grab in American history. Who owns all those things? Right. Freddie Mae, Fannie Mac own, what was it? I read $3 to $6 trillion worth of real estate based on the recent housing bubble. The biggest land grab in American history. Oh my goodness. So the two premises for Agenda 21 things is reduce the middle class through fiscal improprieties and do the land grab. Those two things are occurring. All right? 3 questions you should ask of every politician. I don't care if it's the federal constitution, federal politicians, or state politicians and state constitution. If you got proposal for legislation, is it ethical? That's why I always start. I go with the 10 Commandments and I go with the Bill of Rights, man. Because I can only remember about 20 rules, okay? 21 for boys, all right? Okay, but is it constitutional? Every time I see a bill come out, that's the first thing I do. I go back to the Constitution. I got it actually on my computer. I do a word search. How easy? You do a word search. If the word education doesn't pop up, you know what? That's $1 trillion we could save. $1 trillion since 1964. Why? Because the federal government really doesn't contribute to education. What they do is redistribute income. If we got rid of the federal government, we would actually be able to reduce the cost of education by 30%. In first year. I mean, first year. Without closing a school, without closing that, essentially it would devolve to local school boards and get the hell out of it, the federal government out of our local business. I mean, if the ACT, SAT can't set the standard, the federal government sure as heck can't, okay? Even if something's ethical, even if it's constitutional, the third question of every politician should be, can we afford it? Something may be constitutional, something may be ethical, but if we can't afford it, say a space mission to the next universe or something, I mean, oh yeah, okay, great, somewhere in the Constitution it talks about the space race. But if you, in fact, are going to break the bank, you don't do it. Now, my suggestion, I've got some handouts, actually. One of my handouts, I was glad we had the class last time, on survival. I do this as part of my lectures all over the country, simply because in some places, you don't have the luxury of having a food supply. Hawaii imports virtually everything. And so that's one of the reasons why I came up with this. And I've got some tips. It's called Dr. B's Survival List on air, specifically air filters, on water, filters, on food, on clothing, shelter, personal safety, financial safety, and electricity. So we'll hand these out afterwards. I also created based on downsizedc.org, a letter that you can send. All you got to do is sign it and send it to your congressman. And basically, the demands in the letter are: please do what Congress did after World War II. End the wars, cancel defense contracts, bring the troops home. Cut spending to balance the budget, and lift regulations that are strangling our economy. You know, and basically that's the crux. If you agree with it, I appreciate you signing it, sending it, and hopefully we can start getting Congress back on track. If you don't invest in your family well-being, the federal government won't. I mean, it took them like a week to get water to New Orleans. When the fiscal collapse occurs, I'm not saying if, I'm saying when the fiscal collapse occurs, if you don't own silver, I mean, this 1 ounce of silver is $35. Knowing that $35 US bought this little piece of silver, and I could have bought it about 18 months ago for $18. It's already appreciated about 100% in just 18 months. It will continue to appreciate simply because the dollar is a downhill slide. Moody's, for the first time in the history of the nation, talked about downgrading American debt ratings from a AAA down to a BBB rating. That's heinous.
That's huge.
That's why I say we are no longer a superpower, because if you're not an economic superpower, if you ain't, you ain't. Okay? I mean, that's sort of how it pans out. Now, I've got one other set of things that give you a little bit of encouragement after this. I believe in the spirit, mind, and body. I believe we're made in the image of God. And I do believe in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And so every day I wake up and I pray for Barack Obama. And people say, "Are you crazy?" I say, "Dear Lord, please give this man some wisdom. Please let him see the error of his ways. Please give him the wisdom to do the right thing. Amen." I do the same prayer for my senators and my congressmen. Mind, we have to pray for the best, but you have to expect the worst. And that's why I give these handouts, because literally, if you don't mentally accept the fact that we are at the precipice, you will be one of the many who go hungry. Now, I've got a 4-bedroom house, 4 different beds. Under every single bed is rice and beans, and a shotgun, and ammunition. My kids know how to shoot. My kids have done Taekwondo since 5 years old. My kids each have a taser. My wife has a taser. There's a taser in every single car. Okay? The reality is we are prepared. I have been shot at, both in the military and out of the military. And so I do take these kinds of things very, very seriously. And that's why I say do something, because there's a lot of people I've seen that whine but don't do. You guys are the exception. That's why I like coming here on a bi-weekly basis, okay? Teach the next generation, write letters, make phone calls, develop your emergency kits as per the handout I'll give you. And I love these tasers, which I bought at the gun show when we were working the table last week or 2 weeks ago, simply because when you have it on, you can zap someone with 4,500 volts, and if they steal it away from you, this disables it. Okay? Some of them don't do that. Think that through. Especially my wife has one like this, simply because she locks up her business at night, and sometimes, it's sort of dark, especially in the wintertime, and some big burly guy comes up. This is guaranteed 300-pound man's going to land on his butt. Okay? Wife knows Taekwondo too. So, bottom line is be prepared. Luck is actually defined as preparation meeting opportunity. Okay? These are the pillars. It's actually a holistic system. That's why I believe that the Constitution was divinely inspired, because it is not eaches. It is a system of government, and the entire system does rest on those Judeo-Christian values, which is why most of us are disgusted by Congresswoman Weiner, Rangel, Clinton, etc. Okay? I want to give you a little bit of encouragement. I had lunch with Michelle Bachmann, awesome lady. The reason I do send support to her campaign is simply because she is the only advocate right now for a balanced budget. A lot of the other ones haven't quite grown enough testosterone to do that. But I'm not going to vote for Mitt Romney, I'll tell you straight up front, simply because many of the things he says sound socialist oriented. And for me, that's a big no-no.
He's a one world guy.
He's a one world guy, exactly. Now, I want to show you one other quick thing. It'll just take me a moment to... And this is called what changed.